Min's Minute Modcast with his mates, Perry and Satya. Episode 176.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Min's Minutes Modcast with his mates. Hey, Perry and Satya.
Hey,
Min, hi.
Okay, now another fascinating world of news in the world of AI this week, and I have three topics for us to discuss just on some of the things that I was seeing in the news, and feel free to add any other topics that we want to discuss this week. So the first one, being a super early adopter as I've always been my whole life, I don't know if either of you saw the Tesla RoboCab YouTube video that they released this week. But in essence, what they did was they did the first delivery to a customer and the car delivered itself from the factory to the customer's door. And they recorded they had the camera in the back and they recorded it literally like going on its journey along the streets and the highway, and then like indicated and stopped when it got to the customer, and then the customer just picked up the car from there. So like it really got me thinking, and particularly like when you see some of these statistics, like, you know, it's one of the biggest sort of jobs that humans do right now, particularly in places like the States. It's something ridiculous, right? How many tens of millions of people are involved in transportation, be that, you know, driving taxis, lorries, trucks, etc. Right? This topic is all our podcast is all about AI and technology. I mean, what's that going to mean for folks once we have more robocabs and, you know, more automation in terms of moving things around? On the one side, amazing. You know, we can sit in the back and do WhatsApp to our friends and watch Netflix on our way to our destinations. But also, what's that mean for those people that are making a living right now, you know, driving us around? So, Satya, I'll kick off with you. What was your thoughts? I think you nodded to say you'd seen it.
Yes, I think largely, I know that such model cars are still running in Silicon Valley and some parts of the US where it's like the auto drive itself, the car does that. But for the larger part, I think the upskilling would look very different for the drivers, for people who are operating heavy machineries for that matter. Because on one hand, we were waiting for something that can be automated so that the humans have better things to do. But now that it is becoming a reality, it does. I think it would be an upskilling of a different sort. I go back to the education part, right? Like, how do you now train yourself to learn something different? Whoever would be able to crack this code would be, I think, the next big company or a big person who will be able to do this. Like, what is the upskilling? What area? For me, it's just still not very clear for that matter. Yeah.
well, I'm thinking about the analog revolution that also might take place at the same time. I keep thinking, you know, there are always two elements. If the energy going into AI, that same amount of energy needs to go into something else as well. And when I visualize, you know, cars that are driving themselves and there's not a taxi driver anymore, I'm also immediately thinking of the taxi driver of the future that is an actual person driving the taxi, and you're enjoying to be in that specific taxi, to be with the taxi driver, because it is rare. You know, I'm thinking that we're going that way as well, because then you have autonomous cars driving and that becomes the new normal. And but then we realize I miss the taxi driver. Like in London, Min, the taxi drivers are absolutely awesome. In New York as well, and you can have a chat with them, and it's fascinating. It's an experience, and we don't want to miss out on the experience. Now I think sitting in the backseat of a car without a driver is an experience because it's new.
It's gone full circle. So just this weekend, my daughter went to Notting Hill to go into some of the vintage markets there, and it's taken me back to my childhood because she came back with like all of these like classic like vinyl records. Because again, we've gone full circle, right? From the big Sony Walkmans, CDs, to then the little ones, to the Apple Pod shuffle things, and then now everyone's like, "My God, look at the sound of a vinyl as it's kind of, you know, analog, making the noises, and it just feels, you know, the connection to your heart and stuff."
Yeah.
So she bought those, but then to the other thing you said, she brought back all of these like vintage stamps, like 50 years plus, and they're all themed. So it could have been all of these stamps are to do with like space. These are all to do with transport,
Cool,
whatever.
huh? Yeah.
You look at each one of those and you think, okay, we absolutely love the digital world, and that's why we talk about this thing
Yeah.
on the podcast. But I think I agree with you that if anything, we're going to sort of yearn for the old days of like, oh, actually, that stuff we used to do, where we used to actually talk to each other, face to face, is quite special as well.
Yeah.
Exactly, you wanted to say something.
Yes, I say that both of you have put a very important point is it'll get premium and premium because the vinyl records or even the post offices, that system, if it remains the way it is today, it will be easier. Otherwise, it will become very premium. Let's say if you want to have a cab with a driver, you might have to pay an extra. So this would be like something completely different discussion. I know, I'm aware, but this is where also about the skill set, isn't it, Perry? It's about a human have to remember they're still human, talk to each other. That would be a essential skill set because if you only look at our phones or laptops, and if a real human comes in front of you, I think you need a different kind of training by then. I completely imagine that because we are already, I think I haven't met Dr. Perry ever. So if it'll be very different when we all maybe sitting in the real room and talking, and we don't know how awkward or how interesting it would be.
Well, I want to say something about that, Satya, but within the octopus movement, people come and visit me at my place and stay with me. And quite a few people have done that already from all over the world, Australia, Canada, the US. And you know what's fascinating? I strongly believe that here in this room, although I'm looking at my MacBook Pro screen, there is a biological connection happening now with our brains. I'm always flabbergasted about this because here we go in a dark fiber optic cable, in ones and zeros, and we're connected, but our brains are connected, and it's working so well that every time someone comes and visit me here, it is spot on. It just continues as it always has been, and it has always been online. And then it's never a surprise. It's never like, that's a different energy, that's a different feeling than I normally get from that person live. When I saw Min in Amsterdam as well, it's like, there's Min. And we saw each other, and it was, it was spot on. And I believe that that's the biological connection our brain makes, even though this is all digital.
Yeah.
Fascinating to me.
It,
It's
it,
flabbergasting. Yeah.